Para moderar, por supuesto, para platicar, para entrevistarlo, Javier Olivan. Javier, bienvenido. Muchas gracias. Un aplauso para Mark Zukemberg. Gracias, Mark.
Buenas tardes a todos. Es un placer y un honor estar aquí con Mark, con todos vosotros. Yo soy Javier. Llevo trabajando para Mark 7 años y hoy he preparado unas cuantas preguntas, algunas difíciles, así que espero que no sea mi último día de trabajo en Facebook. That I'm not going to translate. But now I'll switch to English, Mark. So I have some questions for you, and I think we're also going to be taking questions from the audience that you guys can submit through Facebook. But I'll start. Let's go back to the very early days. Even before you went to college, you already were a computer wizard. I've heard that you wired your dad's dentist office with computers. Tell us a little bit more about that time and what you were doing.
Sure. First of all, it's awesome to be here. So thank you for coming out. This is actually, believe it or not, it's my first time to Mexico. So it's great to be here visiting and have a chance to speak with all of you. So, yeah, I mean, for as long as I can remember, I've just really cared about building things and connecting people. And, you know, even when I was getting started, I got my first computer when I was in middle school, and I played games on it for a little bit, and then kind of decided pretty quickly that I wanted to learn how to change the computer and program it. So I started messing around, and I used to build all these things just for myself. And my dad is a dentist, and he asked me to build something to help them connect their office and make it so that all the dentists that he worked with and folks in his office could communicate. I was like, all right, so that's probably like the very earliest version of Facebook or anything like that I worked on when I was in high school. But I've always been really interested in the details of how people communicate and how to enable people to share and connect better and express themselves. And that's just always been something that I care about really personally. You know, I think we're going through a really interesting time in history right now, where it's in a lot of ways this revolution where now, you know, people can be connected. And that means that, you know, not only do we have phones and the internet, but we can share what we want and maintain relationships with everyone that we meet. We can give better feedback to the businesses and parts of the economy that we work with to help grow the economy overall. And we can also participate more in the governance process of how our countries in the world are run. And that's a really special thing. And I've always been fascinated by that. Just wanted, you know, Facebook and the set of people working on this to do our part to help empower people around the world to participate in that. And that's what I care about.
So let's keep a little bit on the early days. You did the project for your dad, but then you went to Harvard, and that's where Facebook started. And I'm sure a lot of people here know or have seen the movie La Red Social. ¿Quién ha visto aquí la película La Red Social? So it looks like a lot of people who I cannot see. So everyone has seen the fiction side of the story. Tell us the real story. How did you really start Facebook? What really happened when you were at Harvard?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Hollywood will make up good stories. and it's, you know, it's funny because when the movie came out, I took everyone at our company to go see the movie because I figured everyone was going to go see it anyway, so we might as well go see it together. And my takeaway from watching it was that it was much more exciting than anything that actually happened. And you know, the reality is that, you know, building something, it's just this process of, you know, you try to put something together and, you know, you try to make something and you see what happens. And, you know, before I built products that a lot of people used, I just used to build things that I liked. And I know a lot of people, a lot of the best engineers and designers and folks who I know got started in a very similar way to me, which is, you know, they played around with a computer because they were interested in it. Maybe they were playing games, maybe they were just reading about things online. And then they had this urge to try to modify what they saw, right? Make a better game, or make a website that was a version of exactly what they wanted. And the funny thing is that when you get started, the first thing that you build is always terrible, right? So, you know, I would build stuff for myself, and like I would use it and I'd be proud because I made it, but objectively it was like really bad. And you know, then it got to a point where I got good enough that I could at least force my sisters to use it, and you know, I could. My sisters would say, "It's like, really, you're going to make us play these games? It's like this is the worst game I've ever seen in my life." But they were good sports about it, and that was good, and just through that practice of practicing and building something and building something slightly more complicated and slightly better, that eventually you build up to the point where you've had enough practice that you can throw something like Facebook together. And you know, the first version of Facebook was really simple, right? I made it in only, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, and it had almost none of the features that you think about Facebook having today. There was no news feed, there was no messages, you know, search was very basic. I mean, you could only upload one photo. So I mean, most of the things that you think about that define Facebook for you today weren't there at the beginning. It was just this very simple product that I threw together. It started growing quickly, and you know, people at our college were using it, and people from other colleges started writing in, asking us to spread it to those schools. And I moved out to California that summer, expecting to go back to school at the end of the summer, and I thought that I was just going to be out in California for the summer working on this. But by the end of the summer, we realized that, you know, there were so many people who wanted to use this that we should probably take some time off from school and work on it a bit more. So I'm technically still on leave from college, and Harvard assures me that I can go back anytime that I want, but I think I'm going to be doing this for a while.
So you copied the first version of Facebook, the most basic one. Do we still have lines of code coded by you running on the site today?
Yeah, I think so. There are some that, not from the very first original version, but you know, even once Facebook became a company and we hired a bunch of people, just because I love engineering and building things, I actually wrote a lot of the code and was the main engineer building it for the first 2 or so years after we got started. And then by that point we had maybe 100 other engineers, and I needed to spend most of my time managing, which is less fun, but you can have a bigger impact. So it's and that's what's always important to me, is make sure that we serve all the people who use Facebook the best and build the best things that we can. And now I can do that by working with thousands of really talented engineers and designers and product managers and folks who work in Facebook all around the world.
I remember you have some good stories from the early days in California, where you had just moved from the East Coast, you were in the West Coast now, and you were racking servers, you had a car that had no keys. Tell us some of the stories, how it felt to be a very scrappy entrepreneur in the early days.
Yeah, well, I mean, early on, we didn't have all those people, right? So basically, so we just had to do everything ourselves, including customer support, right? When someone had a hard time logging into their Facebook account and you wrote an email, I would answer that email, or my co-founder would answer that email. When we needed to increase the capacity of the network and put more servers online, I would go order the servers, and we would drive them down to our data center and hook them up and wire them in and all that. And we had to make some pretty challenging trade-offs early on, because then we moved out to California for the summer, and I think we only had, I think maybe like $6,000 or $7,000 between all of us, and we had to pay for a place to stay and food for us, and we needed to get a car so we could transport all the servers to the data center. And I remember we were trying to figure out what car to get, and the only car that we could get that would both fit us and allow us to carry servers was, I don't know, it's hard to describe this, but it probably had been stolen at some point in its history. I mean, literally, you didn't have to turn the ignition. Like you didn't need a key, you just turned the ignition and it went on, and the radio only went up. If you wanted to turn the volume down in the radio, you had to restart the whole car. So yeah, anyhow, so that was not many years ago, right? But I mean, but you make these trade-offs, and that's a lot of what building a company is, I guess, is kind of figuring out how to use what you have to serve people well, and fortunately we're not in that position anymore.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've come a long way from those days, and How does it feel to connect 1 billion people? 1,000 millions.
Yeah. You know, it's really interesting. I remember when I was in college, I used to get pizza or just hang out with my friends almost every night and talk about what the future of technology and the world was going to be. And one of the things that we all just really believed very deeply was that there was going to be some network and community that could connect everyone in the world, right? And, you know, 1 billion people and more. But the thing is, at the time, I know Facebook was just this college thing. It was just at our school. So we didn't believe for a moment that it was going to be us that would actually be able to play a part of doing that. You know, we assumed that it would be, you know, a company like Microsoft or Google or Yahoo that had, you know, tens of thousands of engineers and, you know, served hundreds of millions of people and had all these servers. And one of the interesting things when I look back at this now, you know, because we were the service that ended up building it and helping to connect more than 1 billion people. One of the questions that I asked myself, and I think is relevant for a lot of entrepreneurs and people who want to build things, is, you know, why were we able to succeed? Right, in this world where all these other companies had way more resources, and we were just some college kids and we had no experience doing this, why were we the ones who ended up doing it? And the answer that I can come up with is that I really just think we cared more. You know, it's like, at this time, it wasn't really a popular thing to care about connecting people. You know, at the time we were just building a service for college, and a lot of people said, you know, this is just going to be something for college. It's never going to be something that everyone uses. This is just going to be something for younger people. And then when more people started using it, everyone was saying, okay, well, you know, a bunch of people are using it, but this is kind of a fad. Clearly something else is going to come along after this. And then when it kind of, we showed that this was actually going to be something that people used for a while, people said, actually, you know, this is never going to be a business. You're never going to be able to make any money doing this. And at each step along the way, there were all these opportunities that these other companies, you know, Microsoft, Google, Yahoo, anyone else could have stepped in at any moment and built it, but they just looked at you know, what people were saying, oh, this is going to be a fad. This is only for young people. This is only going to be a business. Never going to be a business, sorry. And they just never got started building it. And then, you know, we woke up one day and we had 500 million people, and all the people in the world who cared the most about doing this were working at Facebook, and then it was like, wow, you know, we really have an opportunity to do this. And, you know, the interesting thing is, that's kind of how we feel today about, you know, we have this project, internet.org, which is, you know, now that we've connected 1 billion people, the community is up to 1.3 billion now. What we really care about is connecting everyone in the world, right? Because 1 billion, it's a nice round number, but it's not. There's nothing magic about it. We want to make it so that every person in the world has the opportunity and access that comes with being connected to all the people and information and resources that you can get online. And today, only about 1/3 of people in the world have access to the internet. And, you know, as the company that's building the biggest internet service, we feel this really big responsibility to try to make sure that we can help bring the internet to more people. So that's what we're trying to do with internet.org and partnering with operators and folks who are building this infrastructure around the world. But I hear a lot of similar questions today, as I used to in the early days of Facebook. Oh, you know, that's going to be impossible to actually connect everyone. Or, you know, maybe if you're going to invest billions of dollars into connecting everyone, you know, you'll never be able to recoup that, right? Because, you know, people think that the people who aren't on the internet yet can't afford to be on the internet and will never be a good business. And I don't believe that. You know, I believe that everyone should be on the internet, and that when everyone is on the internet, all of our businesses and economies will be better. And even if it means that Facebook has to spend billions of dollars over the next decade making this happen, I believe that over the long term, it's going to end up being a good thing for us and for the world, just like building Facebook and trying to connect people was in the first place. So, I don't know, that's why I think we did this, is because I really just think we cared more. And I think the reason why we're trying to help out with internet.org is because we still care more, and that's why we're on the edge, and that's why we're the company whose mission is to make the world more open and connected.